Hey guys, TKC here with another deck profile, and this one's just a really fun deck here. So I don't really have a name for this deck, but I'm just gonna call it Shadow Champions deck or like lol what deck. I don't know. This deck is just really random, and it's just something I thought up of randomly on the spot because I really wanted to use Impalicus. I really wanted to use this card in some sort of deck, and I figured like, okay, I'm gonna have to use Shadow Champions, and then once I looked at the Shadow Champions, I'm like, okay, I guess the deck should be built in this sort of way. So it's pretty much mono darkness, but as you can see, I got a cute splash of light cards here. I got 3 Stormspark Blast and 1 Helios Rings, and you'll understand why basically when you look at the rest of the deck. So let's start right here. We got Marrow-Ooze and Skull Cutters over here, a playset of each. These are both great because they trigger another card in this deck, which is kind of useful at times. And, Slayers are great, and, early attackers are great as well. So we got 2 Impalicus here, and this is going to be evolving on a bunch of Shadow Champions in this deck. I don't remember the exact count by heart. Let me just do a quick check. There seems to be about, like, 12 Shadow Champions in here, so that kind of happens very often. I only use 2, mainly because I only have 2, but even at 3, I really don't see the point of running 3 in this deck. You don't really want to be evolving too much over your Shadow Champions. The only real bait for it is Quakes the Unclean, but when you're in a bind and you really need that double break discarder, you could just put it on any of the other ones, I guess, and it's pretty much the same body or even better than a lot of the Shadow Champions in here. So, yeah, Impalicus, it could be used at 3, but I'm not really sure. So here for level 4s, we got 3 Ghost Spy and 1 Raptor Spider. 3 Ghost Spy is excellent. Ghost Spy has been very much under the radar because it didn't really do much. We thought this card would be so great in control, but turns out we were wrong. But I think this deck is a pretty good deck to use Ghost Spy in because there's just a lot of cards in here that use it to its advantage. So 3 Ghost Spy is a must in this deck. And then the 1 Rupture Spider is mainly for Heal a Flame, or just any other things, even like, Tatsurion, and even Tatsurion the Unchained, it trades with those, so Rupture Spider is pretty clutch in this deck. I might consider just like removing a Marrow-Ooze for it, but I'm not really sure. Rupture Spider is pretty good, I think. So now for level 5s, we got 3 Quakes the Unclean. This card is great. It's like the perfect bait for Impalicus, and it makes your little dude Slayer, or even anything Slayer for that matter, but I like to put it on Marrow-Ooze, or even better, on Ghost Spy. So you could just like ram your Ghost Spy into things, they lose their creature, and then they lose a card in their hand, and you get 1 card in your hand. So you just get loads of advantage off of Ghost Spy and Slayer. So that's one of the main combos in this deck, pretty much, giving your Ghost Spy Slayer through Quakes the Unclean, and then hopefully later on in the game you get to evolve Impalicus on top of the Quakes the Unclean, and then you're pretty much good to go from there. For the level 5s, we got 3 Black Feathers here, excellent draw. There's tons of removal in this deck, so we kind of really need the draw here, but then again, there are a lot of cards in here that do draw cards. We already have the Ghost Spies here, and then we also have Void Wings, a playset of them. It's a Slayer, and you draw cards, and what's great is that if you ram a Void Wing into a creature, you draw 2 when you have a Black Feather on the field, so that's just excellent. Loads of advantage. And Void Wing is also a Shadow Champion, which is great. So here we got 2 Olgates. I didn't think maxing out would be too great. I didn't want to make this an Olgate deck. I wanted to make this a Shadow Champion deck that utilizes a bunch of different cards right. So Olgate is actually very clutch. It won me a match against Transmission. I went to locals today, met up with Alex, and I met up with his friend, and he was using pretty much a deck similar to Transmission. And at the end of the game, he had 4 shields, and my field was, I think, Marrow-Ooze, Olgate, and Zagon. And then I basically swung with Olgate, then swung with Marrow-Ooze, and because it got banished, this got untapped. And then Zagon went in for 2 shields. For the last 2 shields, no Shield Blast, and then Olgate for the win. It's just, you can do some really nasty things with Olgate out of nowhere, just win the game. But I guess I did really get lucky with Shield Blast, but oh well. It was just, I had to go for it, or else I would have lost anyway, so yeah. It was just like a huge comeback out of nowhere. And then I'm using 1 Texagon, mainly because it trades with like a lot of the big things in the format, like Sabretooth and Bolt Tail, of course, and gets over a lot of things like Tatsurion the Unchained and Neuron and Medusa and stuff like that. So yeah, bringing the Zagon back from the battle decks is an excellent fit to this deck because it just counters a lot of things, and it's a Shadow Champion, which is excellent. Might want to bring this up, to 2 or something like that, but I'm not really sure. Kind of space issues. Like, I'd rather it be another Impalicus maybe, because like at least that discards cards out of your opponent's hand. But it is only level 3, so it gets targeted by Bone Blades and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm not really sure about Zagon. Then we got 3 Kronkos here. This is pretty much like my main reason of playing this deck. Of course, like Impalicus was my first idea, but then I saw Kronkos and I'm like, oh man, Kronkos, this works perfectly in this deck, because basically like your perfect setup is having an Impalicus or like any other big double breaking Shadow Champion like Zagon or something like that, and then you have Kronkos. And then, like, every turn following, you want to have some card that, like, is good to get banished, like Ghost Spy, which is excellent. So if your Impalicus gets targeted and you have a Kronkos on the field, you could just say, nope, I'm going to get rid of Ghost Spy, and then you lose a card, I draw a card. But there are many situations, I believe in the transmission match, what I did is I had Impalicus, and I had Kronkos on the field, and then I swung with Impalicus, he hit a Terror Pit, and he hits my Impalicus, and I'm like, nope, I get rid of Kronkos, and I save Impalicus. And then I draw, and I get another Kronkos, so I play the Kronkos again. So Kronkos is pretty much like a saver. It's like a Shadow Champion saver. It's a lot like Lux, the new light Firebird card that protects your dragons. This is pretty much the same purpose, but the only thing is that this is level 7, which is kind of bad, but I mean, it's the only real way of using it here. And it's a Shadow Champion too, I don't know. So I just use Kronkos. It's pretty great to combo off with Ghost Spy and even Voidwing too, because when this gets banished, you draw a card. It's not when you use the Slayer effect, so that's another card you can use it with. And then we got Trox here. It's a cute Trox just cuz, and because, well, I mean, there is tap in here, so this works really well with Trox. They hit a shield when you have a Trox on the field, which I don't know if they'd be doing too much, but anyways, you get Trox, and you just go in, you banish 2 creatures just with Trox, and there you go. So I just use 1. It's pretty much like the Unchained in this deck, but like a very ghetto Unchained. It's like really not that great. So I don't know. There's Trox. And then for the spells, 2 Dark Returns, basically to recycle a bunch of stuff. These cards go in the discard pile very often. It's very familiar territory for these creatures. And so I think Dark Return's better here because there isn't really too many targets for Return from Beyond. Like, I guess good targets would be Skullcutter in a way, Marrow Ooze, I guess, as to save you with blockers. But even then, if you want to get Marrow Ooze, it'd be cheaper just to do Dark Return and then play it. So I figured Return from Beyond, I tested Return from Beyond today, and it was just very iffy. I think I'd rather play the Dark Return, so I could actually have access to all these other awesome Shadow Champions here. There's probably a lot of situations where I could have gotten back Quakes, summon Quakes, and then ram my Ghost Spy into things and just get so much advantage off of that. So I figured I had to max Dark Returns to 2 instead of using only 1. I used 1 and 2 Return from Beyond in my original build, so I just left it at 2 Dark Return. I think it works a lot better that way. And then, of course, since we're playing Darkness, we play a playset each of Bone Blades and Terror Pit. Good removal, triggers Blackfeather, you know what it is. And, of course, we got the splash here. Now, I think you kind of know why this splash is in here. Mainly just to go crazy with your Slayers or whatever else, ram your Ghost Spy into things. Skullcutter and Voidwing, draw cards. There's just a bunch of stuff that is really good with the tapping of Stormspark Blast and Helios Rings. And what's great about this is that, Blurple usually only runs, at least these 6 cards over here, but they don't tend to run too much in the, the most average builds, I guess. Some people use Spectre Claw, some people use Return from Beyond, but it's not too often, and so Shield Blasts are kind of scarce in that deck, and then this deck kind of just goes, nope, I'm going to add these 4, and I guess Dark Return as well. So you have a lot more odds of hitting your Shield Blasts, and these Shield Blasts are just great. These cards are house. These cards are just excellent. Yeah, it just saves so many games, and that extra Helios Rings provides so much reach too. I think there was one game, that I had the Stormspark and mana, and then I drew Helios Rings for game, basically. Helios Rings, tap those 2, game. There's just so many funny things you could do with this deck. But this deck was really meant to be just a fun deck, so don't expect this deck to give you the best results ever. But yeah, this is just something you could kind of try out with your friends and stuff like that. It's just a really funny deck, and I caught people off guard today. So yeah, there you go. that's my Shadow Champion deck, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. This is TKC. Sign off. See you later, guys.